Welcome. This is the Men Church Stuff Podcast. This is the show where brothers-in-law DJ Culp and Brad Coleman talk about stuff from our perspective as men. It's a show for anyone who wants to hear how Christians interact with the world. And don't worry, we're real. We've grown up in church, and we want to share our experiences with you. We're going to talk about life stuff, church stuff, we'll talk man stuff, and stuff. The show starts now. Greetings, listeners here and there and everywhere, all across the land. This is the Men Church Stuff Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, DJ Culp, as always, here with my beloved brother-in-law, Brad Coleman. Brad, what's up, man?
It is good to be alive and, not a zombie like I was yesterday when we tried to record and I had to go back to bed.
I think zombie is a very, very apt word to use in that sense, man.
If we were a comedy show.
You were not in the land of the living.
If we were a comedy show, it would have been probably a great episode.
Yeah. There may have been some of our Baptist listeners that may have disowned and disavowed us based upon your demeanor. They may have assumed things that were not that were untrue.
Yeah, was not inebriated. Not unless the transmission fluid and the brake cleaner and stuff had gotten me a little, which is possible.
I guess it's possible.
But no. But feeling a lot better today and a lot more in my right mind.
Well, let's just dive into it, man. So I've got a hard out in about 40 minutes. But I want to talk about the topic today is it's a topic that comes from actually our youth pastor at church. He was doing a sermon one Sunday, and he said something that I thought, that is a show. Me and Brad can talk about that for sure, because I think there's a lot there. And the topic today is a quote from shout out to Andy Hannaford. He's our youth pastor, but he said, "We have a way of putting a period in a sentence when God has more to say."
Yeah.
We have a way of putting a period in a sentence. Yeah, right? Yeah, we have a way of putting a period in a sentence when God has more to say.
Okay, I'm good. No, there's more.
Yeah, there is more. So, Brad, I want to open it up. I'm going to open up the conversation with this question. Has there ever been a time in either your life or the marriage that you have with Tabitha where, whether or not you knew it in the moment, have you guys experienced a point in your life or in both of your lives where you all were trying to put a period in a sentence where God did in fact have more to say?
Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty constant in my life. Okay, this is where I want it. Just dot. And he's like, no, there's a comma under that dot,
God, the great Ginsu knife commercial,
yeah.
Right? But wait, there's more.
Yeah, well, and I think about the it came to pass passage, right? It came to pass, and someone said it like this: said, "Hey, are you going through some struggles right now?" Came to pass. Are you going through a great high mountaintop experience right now? It came to pass. Are you kind of mediocre in the middle? It came to pass. Like it's, we're on a journey, and so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of times where it's like, okay, God, this is where I like it. Youth pastor, right? I loved being a youth pastor. I was ready to be a youth pastor for the rest of my life. Nope, I'm good, God. And he was like, nope. And I was like, okay, well, maybe like collegiate ministry. And he's like, nope. Well, anything but being a senior pastor,
Right.
Missionary. Let's do something like that. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I think with that, again, being a youth pastor was something where it was a period situation for me. And I think equally kind of like that with your sister, with her current situation where, she's no longer a classroom teacher. She has resigned from that. She's Going to be, she's committed a couple days a week to be working with the homeschool network that
Yeah.
meets at the church. So she's still going to be teaching. She's still going to be, working with kids and that. But I think she and I both thought she was going to teach in a classroom, and
Mm.
until she, it was
She
time for her to
retired. Yeah.
retire. So I think that for us was, oh yeah, I mean, it was a given that that's just a period situation. This is what God has called me to. And so and God's like, no, there's a couple more periods after that. Dot
Right.
dot dot.
Yeah.
So how about you?
I think the biggest one for me was, and it's almost kind of backwards of the sentence itself. When I lost my job as a public school teacher, I'm going to speak for Shara here, that she wanted to have already put a period on our jobs, on our location, our locale. And God said, no, that's not what needs to happen. And it's one of these moments, Brad, that for us will continually remain central. Like if when you read the Old Testament, there is always a hearkening back to God bringing the Israelites out of Egypt. I mean, it is a central moment for the rest of history for the Israelite community, right? And for me and Shara, moving from Kentucky to Mississippi, granted it was temporarily, but nonetheless it was just, I mean, this was earth shattering. And that move was God saying, no, we're not done yet. I still have more to say. I still have more to call you to. And it's not just me. Granted, in this particular instance, he moved us, or he kind of orchestrated what we were doing via what it was I was after. But for me personally, if we fast forward about, see, 3 + 6, so 9 years. If we fast forward 9 years, sorry, 8, Shara gets a job as a speech therapist in the public school system where she's currently employed. And I had gotten to the point in my profession, like where the institution that I was working at the time, I'd gotten to the point of thinking, all right, God, I'm ready for you to give me another sentence. And God put a period in my sentence, but he did that as a way to start a brand new paragraph, like using an English metaphor. And like that process took another year, another calendar year. And I was like, no, God, you like you ended this story almost. That's almost the way it felt until the job here that I work at currently at Union opened up, and I'm thinking, wow, my bad. Okay. So yeah, I would say that those are like the two most most obvious, that, I mean, that really act as these moments where we thought that we had it figured out,
Yeah.
and we did not.
Well, and I think that's again, and the point of kind of the quote you're saying, right, is that we're never really going to reach a point, so to speak, with a lot of things where we've got it figured out, because we are on this journey, and so God's growing us. God is changing us. God's changing our environment. God's changing where we are. Of course, we're stepping through the days of history, or what will be history in the future. And we're living these days. We don't know what comes, but He does, and so He's prepping us for these things. He's preparing us for these things, and so I think we want to get to the green pastures and the still waters and go, done.
Yeah, right. It's not just I'm going to enjoy a little picnic here.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to, I'm going to set up camp, and I'm not going to move.
Yeah, this is great.
This is great. I'm going to contact the post office. Let's figure out what my address is here. Like, I'm done.
Do you know what I think too, though, is like sometimes God's like, guys, you don't know it, that this season right here is great, but a couple months, this plain's going to be full of water.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to, that still water over there is going to come not so still, and it's going to, it's going to flood.
It's a rain season. Yeah. I didn't tell you that the still waters are set up on a delta.
Yeah. We don't want to be, you don't want to be here when that happens.
Right.
We're going to come back next year after that season and visit again. But yeah, it's crazy. I think that's good though. That's a good quote. That's a good thought.
Well, so something that popped into my mind when I was thinking about it. This particular quote, where could this take our conversation? What could we talk about? I also want to bring into the frame the idea that, and for our listeners, you know, wherever you are, obviously it's not just, you know, the types of people that you're living around, you know, in terms of geographic location, population density, but also kind of what you guys do and what the majority of people around you do and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things, Brad, that I wanted to bring into the frame is how much, if we kind of blow up our perspective a bit, not maybe how much do us as individuals, but the next step is how do us as either a church, let's do this, let's do church and then let's do community. How much do us as a church want to put periods where God has more to say? And I think it's an important point to consider that the way that humans operate is, I've had Brad, Noah is at the point of beginning to understand this, that I explained this to him the other day. You cannot make a decision in isolation. You are actually teaching people things every time that you do something. And whether, like, no matter how much they learn the lesson, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to get him to understand that he can't make a decision and it not impact people around him.
Right.
And so the idea that when I try to put a sentence where God has more to say, the next step is, I mean, I guess it could be us as a family, or maybe even a little bit bigger, which brings us to, you know, an institution like the church. How does that kind of compound itself to become how does it compound itself to begin to negatively impact how a church will begin to put periods in a sentence where God has more to say? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think that in church, we often do this as people, as individuals, right? We want to take the church back to a place where we felt good, where we were maybe on a mountaintop, or at least, you know, not in a valley, where things were going well in our life. Things were going well in the church, and then we liked that, and of course we liked that. And so, but I think sometimes we can get focused on seeking that and trying to restore that in the church, that we kind of get off track of seeking the God who, one, made that time possible, but two, will teach us that it's not good for us to stay on the mountaintop. Right, we need the valleys as much as we need the mountains.
I want to interject something because it just popped in my mind. I've never thought about it from such kind of like a tangible perspective. Why is it that we need to come into the valleys from the mountaintops? Partially, I mean, and I think the easiest answer is for our own growth, right? For our own edification, though it certainly doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like that in the moment. But the problem that if we stay on the mountaintops, we are absolutely doing that at the exclusion of everybody else that's in the valleys.
Mm-hmm. We easily forget. We easily forget how.
And dude, it's not just that that we can easily forget, but if you're on the mountaintop, you have no desire to go to the valley. I don't want to go down there.
I want to forget the way it felt.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And if anybody's in the valley, I mean, I suppose if you want to feel free, come up to the mountaintop. But the problem is that if you don't get down into the valley and you only stay on the mountaintop, you are going to, not you might, you are absolutely going to refuse accepting people that have just come in from the valleys. Like, don't mess with my system.
Yeah. Where you're talking to people in the valley, right? You're talking to people in the valley like, hey, but you're looking from the mountaintop. You're like, no, it's great. No, life's great. Why are you acting so, like everything's so heavy? Why do you ever make stuff so heavy? Yeah. I think when we get on the mountaintop, we want to protect our mountaintop.
Yeah.
And then,
there you go.
And then we're in danger of making the mountaintop an idol. Sometimes that's what God, I think, will lead us off the mountain. Because, like, oh, if I lead you there, you're going to fall. And falling off a mountain, that hurts.
Well, and dude, oh man, I love like that you're inserting kind of like a temporality, not temporary, but temporality, like, right. The assessment of like our orientation in time. You're inserting a temporality to Psalm 23. Like, another reason why is it that God doesn't keep us on, in the green grass, in the still waters, because we will absolutely set up a temple, and this is my holy ground. No, God is. This is grass. That's water. I get it that it's peaceful. I get that your mountaintop's nice and pretty, and you're right. But if you stay there too long, you will reject God. Go read the Old Testament.
Well, and I think, and sometimes it's God's blessing that He will, if we're starting that way, He may either flood the valley or He may do the opposite, right? He bring a drought so that the grass dries up, because today it is and tomorrow it withers away. So don't put your faith in that. There's some other green stuff that, and again, I struggle just as much as the other person because, we need money to buy stuff. But it's not easy come, easy go. It seems like it's hard to come by, but real easy for it to go. And only the names are changed, as it swaps. By the time it comes in, it's already, decked to go out. But, we can't put our confidence in that. Many people have, and they've, guess what? It didn't save them.
Yeah. So to give an example, and this is one that's long since passed. Now, what the situation is currently, I don't know. We don't
happened a couple of weeks ago. So,
a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Many moons. So, the church that Cher and I attended while we lived in Murray, and what brought me to this is, the idea that we have a way of putting a period in a sentence when God has more to say. Sometimes I have seen, specifically in a church setting, I have seen God allow, and I think He does this a lot, but I have seen God allow us to a certain extent, I'm not going to say take control of the narrative, but have a really large part in how the book is written, right? Rather than just us sit back and just watch Him work, which I think there's a lot of that God wants from us, even though we are His people. The church that we attended in Murray, way back when, there was this huge tear in worship style preference. What is appropriate? Who gets paid? Why do we need this, or why should we keep that? And it was so great that this particular church became completely unable to find a music minister to fill a unifying role between these two groups. And in doing so, again, to my recollection, this particular church had two separate services that, like, split by Sunday school. They were trying to figure out a way, if it was possible, to find a music minister that would actually unify both of these services, because the church needed unification. And the church denied it.
Yeah, you can't unify people by giving everybody their way.
But the idea is that the church came to the conclusion after I don't know how many failed searches and even a couple failed hires, that this particular church was not going to allow God to continue his sentence. We are going to keep our period there. And so I think there's a bit of an implication in this statement. We have a way of putting a period in a sentence when God has more to say. There's a bit of an implication that says, well, shame on us, we should take the period away. But I also think there's an implication that's kind of baked into it that should sort of bring to the foreground that we have sometimes, I'm not going to say all the time, but there are times that God gives us the ability to keep the period there. I'm not going to take it away. I'm not going to let you continue your sentence, God. Now, I don't think that I think that it really is impossible to truly search after God and keep a period there. I think that eventually, something will break.
What does God say? He says, "Seek me and find me when you seek me
with all your heart."
With all your heart,
right?
And I think about Revelation and letters to the churches, right? And again, I think it's imperative that we understand that these are letters to the churches. Because a lot of times we look at some of the things that God says as if they're letters to the world, but they're not. They're letters to the church, know. And he says, "Behold, I stand before the door and knock." And a lot of times we use that as a salvation thing, and I think you can make that leap. But in this instance, he's talking to the church. He's saying, "I'm standing outside and I'm knocking. Let me in, and I'll come and dine with you, and you dine with me. It's going to be good. But you shut me outside." And he's God. He opens the door that no man closes. He closes the door that no man opens. The door is not going to keep him out unless he chooses to allow it to. And so I think that's the point is you got to open the door to me. I could force it down, but I'm not going to. I could force my way in, but I'm not going to.
Dude, thank you so much for bringing that to the surface. I don't think that I've really ever thought about it from this perspective, even though it's glaringly obvious that I got to figure out a way to say this. Anytime that a Christian steps into a moment of evangelizing, not necessarily being an evangelist, in the sense that we think about, but anybody who steps into a moment of evangelism where you're going to share the gospel on some level, and you start talking about the word sin, and maybe overtly or covertly explaining what those sins could be. I think there's an unintended result where people, Christians and non-Christians alike, are supposed to be sitting there thinking, wow, I do all of that. When in actuality, no, we don't. Thank you for that, Brad, because you're right. The whole world was not a part of that particular church where Jesus was saying, I stand at your door and knock. He didn't say that to every single church. So what's the takeaway at that point? The takeaway at that point is that if we are not in our lives at the point of the point of punctuation, looking at a moment to say, do I put a period here, or is God about to put a comma there? If you're just kind of in the middle of stuff, we do have the opportunity to look at the way other people may or may not be searching God with all their heart. And if they're not, I mean, I think that's one of the other reasons why Scripture exists. Like, here's what other people have done that skewed them from following God to their fullest. Don't make the same mistakes as them. Granted, you've made your own mistakes, and hopefully other people have been able to look in on your life and say, wow, I don't need to do that. But the idea is, if other people are adding periods and whatever relationship that you have with them that might give you an insight to think, but I really think that God's got more in store. We have an opportunity to either speak into that moment, or, if the moment's not right, or if we're not close enough, or whatever, at least be able to reflect on our own life, thinking, wow, if I make these choices, that might happen. That actually could be a, what's the word I'm trying to think of here, Brad? Like it could actually manifest itself in my life as well. Viable, that's the word. It might actually end up being a viable consequence in my own life.
Yeah. And again, our life, we're walking on a journey, right? So there's a new sentence coming. There's a comma coming. There's some periods coming and again, sometimes there's those periods that we don't like.
Mm-hmm.
David wanted to build God's temple, and God gave him a period where he said, "You can't build my temple. You're a bloody man." And those are hard when God says nope. But this, and again, I'm going to go out on a limb on what I know about David in the scripture, and looking, I think that was a hard period for David to swallow. He had the ability, he had the resources, but God said no. Now, again, and I've said this before, I think on the show, I love what David did, but shows his heart. He said, okay, if I can't build it, I'm going to go bring in cedars from Lebanon and stockpile them. I'm going to bring in these precious stones and all of this stuff and stockpile it, because you told me my son's going to build your temple. So I'm going to resource him and prep him so he can do that. I'm going to take, and do the grunt work. I can't build the temple, but this is what I can do. And sometimes I think that's the blessing from God too. Like maybe you've had a heart for adoption, and God's just put a period and said, no, that's not what I have for you in your life. And you need to go help others in that process of adoption. You need to be supportive, and there's a lot of ups, there's a lot of downs with fostering and adopting, and so maybe God's period is for us to realize that there's something else that he's calling us to. Maybe you've always wanted to be a missionary and go on a mission trip, but you haven't really been able to do that, or not in the way that you wanted. And maybe God said, you know what, no, that's not what I'm calling you to. But you're called to support missionaries and encourage them and help them, and hey, write them letters and support their family and protect them in rooms where they're not there. Speak for them when they can't speak for themselves. I don't know.
Brad, one of the things that I battle with, and I've talked about this on the show before, but I battle with, and it's a very tough battle that I'm still learning how to fight. When musicians think about the world of music performance, 9.9 times out of 10, we think about the people that are doing that as a full-time profession. They might teach on the side, but I mean, that's what they do nearly day in and day out. And then when we think about musicians that are teachers, 9.9 times out of 10, we think the exact same, except about the classroom. Where I have found that God has placed me is actually almost halfway in between both of those worlds. And the reason I bring that up is it is not the world that I wanted. There are times it's still not the world that I want.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I'm, and what got me to thinking about this was, you mentioned about David and the temple. It is so easy. And let's change our metaphor from like the grass is greener. It's so easy that if you're on a mountaintop and you want to go to just a different mountaintop, you've got this idea in your head that, gosh, if I could only experience the life with this. And God says no. That doesn't mean that he's putting a period the way that you think that he is. He's just continuing a story that you're trying to get out of. And anytime that I really sit down and reflect on where God has placed me, one of the first things, Brad, that I immediately like move my mind to is Shara and the kids. I can't begin to be grateful enough that where God has placed me and the opportunities that he is giving me currently, the opportunities that I know are coming, the opportunities that he has given me in the past, and kind of like connecting all the dots, watching the trajectory take shape. I constantly come back to, but if I was performing the way that I always thought that I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to be the kind of dad that I know I've always wanted to be. Now, that doesn't mean that guys that are out there doing it the way that I thought I wanted to aren't good dads at all. The way, just my story, the way that God has directed me doesn't just put me in the classroom, nor does it just put me thrust dead center in the world of performance where I'm traveling and touring and doing all that kind of stuff at such a high rate that it's really tough, to be able to balance both worlds. He's given me both. And again, it's very easy for me, and this is the battle. It's very easy for me to look at another mountaintop and think, gosh, man, what would life be like if I'm over there? And it doesn't matter what the valley's like. It's just, I'm looking at the mountaintop. But again, it's the notion that, is God putting a period on that? I don't think that I should actually care about where God is putting a period. I really need to focus on the story that he's continuing to write.
Yeah. But it's got to be more than one sentence, right?
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, listen, dude, let's go ahead and land it there, because again, I've got a meeting that I've got to go to here in less than 10 minutes, and I got to kind of prep for. But, ladies and gentlemen, listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you are new to our show, welcome. We're always grateful for listeners. If you have anything that you want to add to our conversation, you can contact us via Facebook, our Facebook page, or our Instagram page. menchurchstuff@gmail.com is another way that you can get in touch with us. We answer all of our emails. We love audience and listener interaction on our Facebook group page. So, get in touch with us there. If you're listening to us right now on iTunes or Spotify, stop what you're doing and take less than 3 seconds and give us a 5-star rating. Ready to go.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yes. But again, it's been great hanging out with you guys. Brad, I love you, buddy.
I love you too.
I really have missed hanging out with you, man. I really have. Listeners, we love you, and we will catch you next time.
Hey, go be his church.